And now it's time for another Power Play Post Show interview exclusive.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Power Play Post Show. Very excited to talk to this gentleman. I actually saw him first game of the season as the Worcester Sharks and the Binghamton Senators started off their season on Saturday, October 11, 2014. I wasn't happy with the results. He was very happy with the results, which is okay. He is their radio play-by-play broadcaster and a really good guy and a really good friend to this show. He is Eric Lindquist. Eric, welcome back to the show. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
It's a pleasure to be on. Thanks for pumping my tires. I'm feeling pretty good.
Well, and it's funny, too, because it's such an odd combination for the first game of the season for both teams, for Binghamton and Worcester. There's not a big rivalry there. They usually play each other, once or twice every year and whatnot. But it's not a big thing. And yet, it was actually a fun game to watch.
Well, I think the first game of the season, no matter who you're playing, turns out to be a pretty exciting game. You got, some guys are in training camp, it seems like, for 2 months or over 2 months with rookie camp, prospect camp, and that sort of thing. So by the time you get to the first game, you're ready to, hit some bodies and get the season going. And it turned out to be a great game against the Senators, which seems like 2 months ago. But we saw the first ever 3-on-3 overtime score right off the bat in game number 1. So it was fun, and really it kicked off what was so far has been a pretty good start here for the Sharks this year.
Yeah, you talk about that first goal in overtime 3-on-3. It was Matt Torremia who played here in Binghamton when he first started his career and everything. I don't know how many times you've seen 3-on-3 since then. It's been out there a lot. What are your thoughts so far on 3-on-3?
Well, we've had 3 games decided already this early in the season through 7 games by 3-on-3 hockey.
Wow.
We've got 2 winners in Termina and Dylan DeMello, a pair of defensemen, and we lost to the Crunch on home ice it's actually a 4-on-3 goal, pardon me. They had a power play during the 3-on-3 situation, but I love it. It's been a blast to watch. It's been a blast to call. I know speaking with our fans in Worcester, they've seen it twice already on home ice, and they're all for it. They're thumbs up on it, and we get to see a shootout so far this year, and I think that's part of the thinking behind having the 3-on-3 is to end those games in overtime. And the 3 times I've seen it, it's been a while. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I actually been running the numbers when it comes to 3-on-3s, which has been where it's been decided the most when it has been decided in overtime, which is obviously very good. The only 4-on-3 is obviously the game that you guys played, where there was a penalty called and it went to 4-on-3, and then 4-on-4 has been just much less. But at the same time, when looking at that versus shootouts and versus last year. It's been much, much less, which has actually been pretty great. I think just looking at the games from last night, there was another game that was Wilkes-Barre and Lehigh Valley went to overtime. So there have only been 4 shootouts this season. Last year at this time, there were already over 20 games in the shootout. So I think 3-on-3 hockey, you've seen 3 of those games now already this season. It really has made a huge difference in the way the game is being decided. And if people don't like shootouts, and maybe the casual fan does, at least we're giving the traditionalists and the casual fans something really exciting with 3-on-3 hockey, which is still a team sport.
Well, yeah, you're right, and that's it. It's not an individual, one shooter, one goalie, and let's cross our fingers and hope for the best. We've seen again the 3-on-3 hockey that I've seen. We've gotten pretty creative already. Either 2 defensemen, 1 forward, 2 forwards, 1 defenseman. I think at one point we might have had 3 forwards on the ice, and it's back and forth. And I think before Termina scored the overtime winner in Binghamton, I think Troy Grosick might have stopped consecutive back-to-back breakaways for that overtime. So it's back and forth. It's a lot of fun. And speaking to the players, they seem to enjoy it as well. So I think it's been a great addition so far in this early hockey season in the American Hockey League.
Well, if people look at the standings right now, they see the Worcester Sharks poised at first place in the Atlantic Division, something we haven't seen in a while. And you and I were talking off air a little bit. It's been a few years since the Worcester Sharks made the playoffs. Yes, it's early. It's only 7 games in for the Worcester Sharks, but they do have 9 points. tied with Providence and St. John's. St. John's has played more games. But what's also very impressive when you look at the numbers is that Worcester has 22 goals scored, but they've also only given up 19 goals. And I know the 19 goals might be just the middle of the pack right now, but if you take a look at the numbers overall, Worcester's just playing really good hockey at this point to start the season, which is phenomenal.
It's been a great start. 6 of the 7 games have been decided by a single goal, so it's really all 7 games could have gone either way. And what's been exciting so far this season for Worcester, it's been a different guy. It seems like each night kind of putting up a big game. We had the Freddie Hamilton natural hat trick.
Yes.
Against the Portland Pirates last Sunday. 3 goals and 5-12. Obviously, he was the number 1 star. Petter Emanuelson, one of the 2 Swedish-born players the Sharks signed this offseason. He's been off to a hot start. He's got 4 goals in 6 games. Michael Haley, a free agent signing, former Islander and Ranger. He's got 4 goals, 6 points through 7 games. So, every day it's been someone different stepping up. The one constant, however, has been Troy Brosek in goal. He's played every single second so far in net this season for Worcester, 7 straight games, and he's been super in net for the Sharks so far this year.
Who's been the best rookie so far?
Well, you know what? The 2 Swedish-born players, they're not considered rookies. They each won the Swedish Elite League Championship each in the last 2 years. Melker Karlsson and Petter Emanuelson, they have been really good for the Sharks early on. Evan Trupp, a guy that won the Kelly Cup last year with Alaska, signing an AHL contract this offseason. He's got 5 points through 7 games. He's been a real pleasant surprise. And again, really, it's been it's been a team effort early on here for the Sharks. Not one player has necessarily stood out as the go-to guy this year. It's been a collective effort, and that's generally a good sign of a good hockey team early on.
Now, one of the things that we read about before the season started was how San Jose really wanted to kind of change, how their organization from top to bottom kind of looked and felt, bringing in some veterans, bringing in some players that could work with young players. Do you think, obviously, first place, 9 points, 4 wins already in 7 games, that's a great start. But do you think that strategy that they wanted to do for their organization has paid off so far and is working the way they wanted to in Worcester?
So far, so good anyway. Obviously, there was a lot of talk this offseason about the movements in San Jose, and not that there was a regained focus in on what was going on in Worcester, but it was made very clear from the get-go that the young players within the organization would have a great opportunity in San Jose Sharks training camp to make the squad. Chris Tierney and Barclay Goodrow, 2 rookies that ended up making the team in San Jose, given the opportunity early on, and it's really kind of, trickled right down to Worcester. I mentioned the signings of Haley, Emanuelson, Karlsson, but, we brought in Taylor Fadoon, who played a handful of games with Edmonton last year. He's been really good on defense. Matt Termina, who had the overtime game winner in the opener against Binghamton, he's been solid. And, I mentioned Haley early on. Hamilton was the MVP last year. He's got 6 points in 7 games, so he's right on schedule. And, Brian Lurg, who has kind of had a slow start offensively for Worcester, but
yes,
he's a former captain at Lake Erie, won the national championship at Michigan State. He has been really, I think, the glue early on for this hockey club, a veteran presence up front, and he may have not have found the score sheet scoring-wise just as of yet, but he's been really important early on.
And I think it's very important to bring in guys like him and Matt Termina because they're just natural born leaders almost in a sense. One's a defenseman, one's a forward, and sometimes if they don't produce offensively, people don't realize what they do in the locker room, what they do at practice, how they help the players sometimes off the ice as well.
Sure, the general manager of the Worcester Sharks, Joe Will. Him and I had put together a list at the start of the year of guys that had either won championships or had captained previous clubs that were now on the Worcester Sharks, and the list was long. So, Conrad Abbotshauser won the Memorial Cup with Halifax. I mentioned the national championship by Brian Lurg. Travis Alexic won the championship with Minnesota Duluth.
Yep.
Gus Young, a rookie defenseman, won with Yale. So the list goes on. And I think that was a big focus moving forward to find those character-type players in Worcester. And, so far it's paid off, as you mentioned, first place in the Atlantic Division.
Let's talk a little bit about one of the things that I've mentioned to some of my previous guests this season so far are the players that maybe need to step it up. This is their year to prove something. And when I look at the Worcester Sharks and the players that are on here, and I'm not this is not really a cut down. This is more you're in your second or you're in your third season, and you're getting to that point. Tarasov, I mean, how big does this season have to be for Daniel Tarasov to be a part of either an NHL club eventually in the future or even with the San Jose Sharks?
Well, Tarasov, people forget that he was signed early on just to an AHL deal out of the USHL. Every single NHL team passed by Tarasov. Worcester signed him to an AHL deal. He was impressive his first year, got an NHL contract. He had a solid year up in San Jose in training camp. He's battled injuries in each of the last 2 seasons, this being his third year as a pro. But Tarasov, the guy, I think perhaps the most gifted, skilled player Worcester has in their lineup right now, just pure skill. And he's the type of player that once he finds the back of that, they kind of once you get one, the rest of the dominoes fall. He's still looking for his first goal this season, but he's a guy that once he gets going, he'll get it rolling. And I'm looking forward to him to have a big year at 3.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how his season plays out. Now, of course, they always bring back one of my favorites to the Worcester Sharks, and I absolutely love him. He's great, and I can't wait to have him on the show again in the next few weeks or so. But Jimmy Bono, I mean, you haven't mentioned him yet, but you and I both know him very well. We know the kind of person he is. We know the kind of player he is. We know what he likes to do on the ice, off the ice. How important, for almost even for a fan aspect, is it that Jimmy Bono's on this team?
Well, he has been, other than our mascot, he's probably the most recognizable face within the organization. Jimmy now in his 4th season here in Worcester.
Yeah.
You mentioned, I haven't mentioned him yet. I guess I'm so used to talking about how important he is that I kind of wanted to, touch on, some of the other guys that we've got going on. But, Jimmy's, a great locker room guy. He handles his business quite well, and we know what business I'm talking of. And,
yep.
The Eastern Conference is tough again this year. Manchester's got, they brought in Josh Gratton. Hershey's coming to town on Saturday. They've got Tim Spencer. We had Portland in town the last 2 games. They've got Mark Lewis. They just signed Paul Bissonnette. So that aspect of the game, dropping the mitts in the American Hockey League is still alive. And Jimmy's, he can handle it the best of anyone in the American Hockey League.
And he's one of those guys, and I've talked to him, and he says, Bob, I work on this every single day, my skating, my puck control. He goes, I work on all that stuff because I know that I can't just fight. I can't just throw down the gloves and whatnot. And that's what I love about him. He knows what he has to do. It's just like Bobby Robbins with the Bruins. The kid that was there for so long, battling, finally got his first chance to play in the NHL this season as he made the Boston Bruins that first year. I mean, Bobby and Jimmy have had some battles. They're 2 of my favorite guys, and they don't even like each other. It's amazing stuff. It's amazing stuff because they're really character guys that work really, really hard and everything. And I think that's one of the things that I hope younger players see in Jimmy is that work ethic and what he has to do just to stay on not just the Sharks organization, but even the Worcester Sharks.
Well, you know what? I was joking at Jimmy when we got training camp rolling. I think he spoke in front of the club, and it was mentioned that this was his 10th season, his 10th training camp as a professional player. And I mentioned that he's the old guy on the club right now at 29 years old. So, you know as well as any that the American Hockey League seems like every year it gets younger and younger.
Yes.
You got a guy like Jimmy who's still battling his way through, still enjoys coming to the rink every day, and he really enjoys being a hockey player. And I think a lot of the young players that we've had in Worcester this year and years past, recognize that aspect that, being a professional hockey player in the American Hockey League is not a bad gig. And, and Jimmy's, we're happy to have him back, and a huge fan favorite in Worcester.
Now, before we started this interview, you actually were talking to me about how great the first part of the season has been schedule-wise. It's felt like an NHL type of schedule for the Worcester Sharks. If I'm understanding this right, your first 3-3 isn't until December 12th through the 14th. Am I misreading that, or is that correct?
Yeah, I think we might have the fewest 3-3s. I have a list that's not on me. The fewest 3-3s in like 6 or 7 years in Worcester.
Wow.
So the schedule has been great, right off the bat. No 3-3s, as you mentioned, till mid-December. It's been an NHL type style schedule for the Sharks to start off, and it's paid off. 4-2-1 through the first 7 games, first place in the Atlantic Division, and we've got Friday night off coming up, so I'm looking forward to it. And I love those midweek games.
Yeah, and gotta ask you, what does Eric Lindquist do on a Friday night off?
I'll plead the fifth.
So in other words, he's staying home, folks, and sleeping, and probably be in bed by 8 o'clock. Yes.
It's funny that you say that. Generally, I'm so used to working Friday, Saturday, and Sunday that when I do have a Friday night off, I'm usually, I kid you not, I'm on the couch. I'm listening to the other games around the league, and I'm checking the scores, and I'm just as I'm excited about the season as well. So I'll be tracking scores. I think Hershey's in Manchester on Friday night. We play them on Saturdays, so I might tune in and have a listen to Stoosh or Mr. Ken Kale on Friday night.
Well, I like listening to both of those guys, but you can actually listen to Ken Kale and still follow the game through Stoosh because nobody tweets as a broadcaster more than Scott Stuccio. I don't know how he does it. Nobody knows how he does it. I guess you got to stand there and watch him do the game and see how he does it. Do you tweet during the game?
You know what? I do, and it's not easy. It seems like every year there's something else that broadcasters have to do to keep fans involved. And I was watching Jeff Mannix on what was it, last night, Wednesday, at the DCU Center. He was taking pictures during whistles and tweeting them out, and folks think that the radio guys just show up at 7 o'clock, put the headset on, call the game, and go home. There's a lot more going on. During, before, and after the game. There's a lot to do to keep things running and keeping up with all the social medias and that sort of thing.
Obviously, this Saturday, November 1st, at home versus the Hershey Bears. They'll be in, and as Eric said, they'll be in Manchester the night before. And then Sunday, November 2nd, you guys will be at the XL Center in the highest and scariest perch there is for broadcasters visiting. I know I was there with Ken Kale once, and I got to be honest with you, I don't think I watched the game all that much. I just listened to Ken and then commented on what he said because that's a pretty scary perch up there at the XL Center. Bob Crawford, how you do it, I have no idea every single night. Eric, thank you very much for coming on. We definitely appreciate it. It's always good to talk to you. And I'm glad that the Worcester Sharks right now are sitting at the top of the Atlantic Division, 4-2-1-1. That's just awesome. It's just great to see.
I'm happy too, Bob. Thanks for having me on. And again, it's a lot more fun when you're winning. And
yes.
I'm looking forward to calling a few Calder Cup playoff games this year. It's been a little while.
It has been a while for you guys, for sure, absolutely. He is, of course, Eric Lindquist of the Worcester Sharks, and we'll be right back right after this, right here on the Power Play Post Show.
Thanks for listening to this Power Play Post Show interview exclusive. Remember to join Bob and Megan every Thursday night for an all-new edition of the Power Play Post Show.